have this session with Shivani, Windmills resident, a very enthusiastic proponent of Ayurveda, and also Dr. Azam Kabir, who's a doctor of Ayurveda and acupuncture and acupressure specialist. So, Azam, I would like to begin with you as to, um, stress seems a very kind of a wide kind of term. So, how would you define stress? How can we, what is the definition of stress? And maybe from Ayurveda perspective, if you could explain to us.
So, hello everybody. So today the topic is about stress. So it's a very simple definition. So like the body responds to the mental pressure. The bodily response to the mental pressure is called as stress. The pressure on the mental pressure, which also means like tension or workload, anything that is related to your mental health can also be considered as stress. Here it also says, it's a small definition, which I can just read it out. The bodily response to the mental pressure is how your body communicates to you, telling that you're overdoing things. You're overdoing things physically, you're overdoing things mentally. Anything that you're doing, you're overdoing things will get into a category of stress. So according to Ayurveda, Ayurveda says there are three gunas of the manas. Like we have vata, pitta, and kapha. These are the three gunas of the body. And there are three gunas of manas. That is satvika, rajasika, and tamasika gunas. So these are three properties of your mind. So here what happens, there must be a balance between all the three gunas. If there is any imbalance in the three gunas, which will lead to the pressure, which will lead to the building up of pressure in the mind or in the manas, there the topic of stress starts. So if you
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Rajasika, Tamasika, and Satvika. Satvika, we'll just go to the gunas of the Satvika.
Kindly put their their mic on mute, please. Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Azam. Yeah.
So Ayurveda says the three gunas of manas, that is Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva, are considered to have a proper balance in themselves to maintain the healthy mental life. So where Rajasika is also considered as activity or movement. Rajasika is considered to as an activity. For example, you start thinking during work. Intellectual capacity can be correlated to the Rajasika quality. Tamasika is considered to as a dullness. Dullness is where you're relaxing, or where you are depressed into something. There is a depression. There's a form of depression where that can be correlated to the Tamasika quality. And Satvika is a balance. Satvika is considered to be as a balance between Rajas and Tamas, where you're neither too active nor too relaxed, or you're in a very peaceful condition. For example, if someone's in a vacation, just enjoying the climate, not thinking about anything, the blank space in the mind is considered to be as the Satvika state. So these are three gunas of the manas. So if there's any imbalance in between sattva, rajas, and tamas, will lead to a condition called as stress. Is it?
Yeah, doctor, I just wanted to say that, yeah, that's such a beautiful framework that Ayurveda has given us, not only to understand, the energies in our body, as you mentioned, but also the energy of our mind. So if I could give an example of, how would you understand these gunas? Imagine the flow of a river. When this river flows at its pace, nourishing both the sides of the river, where people can do agriculture, people can prosper, people can cultivate, that's a very sattvic flow of the river. If this river is in spate, and if it is actually destroying the sides of the banks and there are floods, that is excess rajas. And if it is stagnating, where there are just pools forming on the side, and then there is mold, and there are the water starts smelling, then that is excessive tamas. So we should understand that we do need rajas and tamas in our lives. Healthy rajas can motivate us to action, help us to be functional, and healthy tamas can allow us to rest, go to sleep as we need to. It's necessary for us to maintain our body. And excess of these is when you face an imbalance. And it's like a cycle. An excess of this leads to stress, and stress leads to an excess of this, because if you consider your behavior, anyone's behavior when they are stressed, normally they forget to do the things that they would usually do. They would respond in ways by unhealthy eating, or perhaps cutting down on sleep, or angry outbursts, or feeling of not being able to do anything. So all these are states of the mind which indicate excess rajas or excess tamas. On the other hand, sattva is that balance, that clarity, that lightness, that brightness in your mind, which allows you to navigate through life, giving a response rather than a reaction.
Yes, ma'am. That's right.
So, Shivani, of course, you've explained it very well, but in a lay person's language, if both of you could tell us as to how to watch out for the kind of symptoms which would mean stress for us, because we have a feeling, we think maybe it's stress, maybe it's depression, we don't know about it. Of course, it's a very wide kind of a topic, I understand. But if you could give us some pointers, what we should look out for, where we understand that we might be stressed. These symptoms define that, indicate that we are stressed.
Okay. This year, when we are talking about every individual, so as the last session we had, we spoke about vata, pitta, and kapha, where every individual has a different category. Either he goes into a vata category, or he goes into a pitta or a kapha. So stress according to different people is also different. For example, vata, we spoke about people like vata who are very active, who are always running around doing work, and they don't rest a lot. They're very indulging themselves into different activities. So for people category of stress, so for example, these people are more prone towards getting anxious enough. So these people are very anxious. Vata people get very anxious, and they get themselves doing overthinking about things. They think about the future a lot. They think, what if this happens, what if that happens, overthinking, and uh, taking wrong decisions at the same time, do not being in the present. So vata, the people who are of a vata category are more prone towards anxiety, overthinking, and also worrying. So these are the three things vata people should consider themselves. Okay, I am prone to all these things, and I have to work over these small topics, and to know themselves if they are vata, pitta, and kapha. That is important. So knowing ourselves, either you are a vata or you're a pitta or a kapha, is also possible by the kind of stress you might be going through. So if you're going through anxiety, then you might be under a vata might be more predominant in your body, or the activity part of the body is very active in your body. Yeah. And when it comes to pitta, here people who are who are the doers. Usually they have a plan, they go according to the plan, they don't go out of the plan. They're very straightforward. They plan according to the things and they execute it. So if this goes out of balance, or either the execution goes for a toss, or they're not able to complete the task, then they start getting angry. So anger and explosiveness, and the thing where they start abusiveness, anger, and explosiveness is considered to be as a condition for pitta people. People who are more prominent to the pitta condition. Or it is also possible for a normal person to have pitta aggravated in their body so much that the stress they're getting is a pitta kind of a stress. You're getting my point?
Okay.
And then comes the kapha. Kapha Exactly. The Kapha people are very subtle. They're very smooth. They don't do a lot of work, and they're very intellectual. They also have a different kind of stress. Here, Kapha people are more prone towards depression. Kapha is considered to be as the earth. In the Pancha Mahabhuta, it's considered to be as the earth element which absorbs. So usually most of the most of the housewives are Kapha people, Kapha Prakritis, because they absorb all the energy. They start consoling people. They start giving advices. They share others' problems, and they start giving others a good pep talk or something which other people can
Basically,
enjoy.
they operate like a sponge, taking all the
Yes,
tension
they
from
absorb
everyone and
everything. They
trying to
absorb
make the environment at home
at home.
better, you know.
So the care they give, that also causes a lot of depression in themselves. What happens in Kapha people is where uh, they don't care about themselves. They start caring about the surroundings. They don't see what they require. They only think, okay, I'll go share this person's problems. I'll go share this person's problems. I can solve their problems. I can solve others' problems. Ultimately, they'll end up not solving their own problem.
Yeah.
So
So
Kapha
that's why
people are all
many times people who are really active and trying to help a lot of people, they absorb a lot of their attention because they're counseling people all the time and feel a little overwhelmed at one point of time.
exactly.
So,
And
Azam, you've told us about some of the indications as to whether we are Vata or Pitta. But, I suppose to understand your own, which category you belong to, we will have another session, Shivani and Azam, where you can define and explain it, and then people can approach you and take your help to find out what they are, Vata or Pitta or Kapha, Hana?
Yeah,
Shivani,
yeah,
that's a
and
good idea.
yeah, as Dr. Azam said, these are the main three categories, but no one is actually just a pure Vata, pure Pitta, pure
Yeah, that's
Kapha.
what I
Kapha.
Very
thought.
rarely will you find that. You'll find that you're a combination of two. One in a higher matra and the other in a lower one.
Lower matra.
And there are very few who are three. So,
Yes.
um, you know, um, definitely that is something to go into. But even if you didn't have this knowledge, let's not add stress to people thinking they have to know all these things before they can help
Yeah,
themselves.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, how do you know when you're stressed? In fact, just right this very moment, I will ask everyone who's on this call to notice how their body feels. You know, do you feel like your shoulders are up? Do you feel that you're hunching forward? Do you feel that your neck is slightly forward compared to the rest of your spine? Are you sitting with your some part of your body clenched? So these are the subtle signals that your body gives you all day long, actually. So one thing is to listen to your body. So many times we are on a call or we are doing some computer work and our hands are hurting, our shoulders are hurting, our neck is hurting, but we just bypass it. We think, no, no, no. We don't even realize many times that this is happening to us. So later on, we also realize that we've forgotten to breathe. Many of us forget that we are not breathing. We're taking very shallow breaths.
Absolutely.
Then over time, this builds up as feeling dizzy, feeling lack of energy, feeling exhausted, even though you might have slept, the night, very disturbed sleep, or it can manifest in the form of constipation or even diarrhea or heartburn, feeling that you've not digested your food. So all these things, if they happen once in a while, it could be due to one specific thing. But when it's happening a lot, you're noticing that this is happening to you quite a bit, then you know that you have been facing stress and probably not acknowledging it. So listening to your body's signals and listening to your feelings is the first step towards change. As an outsider, I could come and tell you, hey, you've lost a lot of weight, what's going on. But if you've not noticed that about yourself, then that is something that needs to change so that you become the owner of your own health, the author of your own well-being.
Hmm. Hmm. So it too, you talked about to notice and feel in our own body how we are feeling, and you gave a very good example when we are on calls and all that, we are concentrating so much on that,
Yeah.
that we are not relaxing, and be it the shoulders or the breathing and all has been completely neglected. The normal functioning of the body gets neglected because we are so focused at that point of time.
Yeah.
But besides that, what are the other things to look out for? This is the physicality and the pain and how your digestion is impacted. What would be the other things to look out for as symptoms of stress?
Insomnia. I could start with insomnia. Insomnia is where one big problem of identifying themselves that they are under a lot of stress.
Mhm.
Either it might be a stress which is an active stress or an acute stress. Sometimes what happens, a chronic stress, you can understand chronic stress is like a stress which keeps building slowly, and one fine day it becomes this huge that you will end up not sleeping for days.
Yeah.
So insomnia is a very good example for stress uh, related to work or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Anxiety as well. Anxiety. Usually people don't understand what actually anxiety is. When you ask an anxiety patient, you ask, are you feeling anxious about something? So he tells, no, I'm not anxious about something. But the only way to identify yourself that you are anxious is through your surroundings. You're supposed to listen to the people around your family, and always ask the surround, or just look at the surroundings. Like for example, your parents, your kids, or someone, they'll start throwing up ideas like, are you okay, what's wrong with you, what's happening? People don't accept the fact that they're anxious. Anxiety is one big problem where people
So
don't accept themselves.
they are, it's the others who notice it
Yes,
about
it's
them
the
and
others
can
who,
help them
yes,
identify it.
yes, and you have to accept and go for a checkup or get it checked once at least about anxiety. And then comes uncontrolled anger.
Okay.
Anger is also a part of stress.
Okay.
Uh, Here, people who work a lot and do not get their job done, or there's some problem happening in their work, and they start to like have a breakout sometime. Either they cry a lot or they get angry. Either of two things will happen, and this is not once or twice. For example, they get angry four times a day very badly, or they cry for a whole day, and that's abnormal. This is also a type of stress,
So,
anger and
but many
crying.
times, Shivani, it's also said that if you are feeling very anxious or hurt or worried or and sometimes it's just the anger because of the frustration that,
Frustration.
you can't do anything about it. So
Exactly.
also so many times it's also said that, it's good to have a good cry, to get it out or to vent your feelings. you know उतार दो जो भी गुस्सा
Yeah.
है या जो दिल की बात है वो कह दो, get over it, kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
do you think that really holds this
Ma'am,
opinion?
this crying is a burst out. Here you express all your feelings and you get out of the feeling of
Yeah,
having that frustration. But
yeah.
the crying I'm talking about, it's the crying for the whole day. People cry for the whole day for no reason, and they start crying for small things like very little silly things.
your
They
your
start
eyes
crying.
well up because you're feeling
Yes,
so sensitive and
yes,
delicate inside that
yes.
even small things hurt you.
Yes. So this is not because they're doing it wantedly. It's because they're under a lot of stress.
Okay.
This is usually seen in children.
Yeah.
So children are all, a lot of in there, a lot of stress, and they start crying for no
Mm,
reason, small
mm,
things. Yeah.
mm, mm,
And then comes depression,
mm,
feeling lonely, then isolating themselves from others,
mm,
not having a social life, and not enjoying a company, anyone's
mm,
company. They just want to stay alone in a dark place. This comes under the category of depression.
mm, mm.
Overeating,
Okay.
it's called as emotional eating. It's something called as emotional eating. People, just to overcome their emotions, they eat a lot. They just keep eating a lot.
Mm.
A lot of any kind of food, a lot of junk food, and they just want to eat.
But on the other hand, it can be that you don't feel hungry at all and you don't feel like eating. So
Yeah.
both these things are
Both
not
these
normal and
not normal.
indication of stress.
Yeah.
Yes,
And also
putting
lack of self-care,
lack of self-care.
when you stop grooming yourself, where you're not paying attention to have you combed your hair? When was the last time did you comb your hair? When did you take a nice shower the last time? Where you're really not embodied as such because you're so caught up in your mind and your feelings, and sometimes it's a chemical thing. One thing we must understand is after a certain point, it's out of your hands and you do need very professional help to
Help.
get you out of that. So up to a certain point, if you've been doing, it's like a vehicle, if you've been doing regular maintenance, if you are a careful driver, you'll notice the condition of your vehicle and you'll take care right then and there. But if you let things go for a long time without addressing it, then at some point you'll have to take your vehicle to a garage to get it fixed. And when you get a tire puncture on the road, you don't start yelling and shouting at the tire, "Ki kyun tu puncture hua?" I mean, that's ridiculous, right? You go and get help.
Yeah.
So no matter what the cause of the stress is, no matter how it has happened to you, one should never get angry with oneself. One should seek help. So whether it's in the beginning stages or towards the later stages, wherever you are, if you feel that something's not quite right, then either talk it out with someone you trust or get professional help from the kind of doctor that you believe in. So
And
that
people hurt
actually,
themselves as well.
sorry,
People hurt themselves as well. They
yes,
start hurting themselves physically,
yeah,
uh, and emotionally as well.
yeah,
People try to make all all nonsense. They start hitting, banging themselves, hitting
yeah.
themselves with different things and all. So that also states that the person is in a lot of stress.
So I think, Shivani, we were earlier discussing this, that also it depends on what you expect from your day or from your life. What are your expectations?
Yeah.
How do you look at life? Is it just, sunny, happy situation which you expect to be throughout of your life, or you are realistic enough to realize that there will be ups and downs? So your
Yeah.
expectations also play a role in this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely, definitely. I wanted to say that, to sort of look at how Ayurveda understands this whole concept, it really focuses on something called resilience of the body and the adaptive power of the body. So, before we talk about expectations, because that is addressed by a certain aspect of Ayurveda,
Okay.
let's take a step back and understand, where does Ayurveda play in all this. um, what it tells you is that you can have preventative approach to stress, you can have an adaptive approach to stress, and you can have a curative approach to stress. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes the life is such that we have to go through certain situations, and that is where the expectation aspect comes in. Many of us have, I can't remember, maybe some seniors on this call might have experienced a pandemic like this before in their lives, but at least none of our generation has, none
Absolutely.
of the younger generation has. So in a way, we are unprepared for this. Now you can approach this unpreparedness with two mindsets. One is the growth mindset, which tells you that you can learn. The second is the fixed mindset, which says, "Oh, this is all I know. I feel overwhelmed and helpless. I can't do anything about this." So we want to consciously choose the growth mindset, which means learning how to adapt, prevent, and cure these what we are facing. And that's where I feel Ayurveda plays a very big role. And Dr. Azam is going to talk about some aspects like Dinacharya, which really help you in the adaptive and the preventative and curative aspects.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I just want to share a beautiful story I had heard, which really impressed me a lot, which is, Lord Buddha and Angulimala's story. Many of you would have heard it that Angulimala used to be a very bright student, and owing to certain bad influences and jealousy from his fellow students, he was put into a situation where he fell into disfavor with his teacher, and his teacher got upset with him and demanded, 1,000 angulis, which turned him into a murderer and a robber. And once he got onto that route, it was hard to stop him because he became fixated on that idea. But then it took someone like Lord Buddha, who was in his health, And that's the key part, who was in his health to be able to extricate Angulimala out of that situation. So, we feel stressed, but we have to make a choice here that we want to stay in our health so we can help ourselves and the ones around us. That's a very conscious choice that we have to cultivate. And that is where, why are we even talking about this? It's because we want to be healthy. We want to be able to get through this situation in a healthy way. Um, you know, there's this beautiful saying from the Atharva Veda, Jive ma Sharda Shatam, Pashye ma Sharda Shatam, Mode ma Sharda Shatam. What does that mean? The elders, the ancestors used to say, may we live to see 1,000 autumns. May we enjoy 1,000 autumns. But if we talk to people now, they're like, who wants to live that long? I don't want to live that long.
Yeah.
Why do they say that? Let's investigate it. It's because they feel that life is going to be pretty bad, right? If I were to guarantee you that, Ghazala, you're going to have a great life for the next 50 years, you would be happy, right? But can I guarantee it? Can anybody guarantee it for you? Nobody can. But what we can do is take steps to stay healthy in whatever way we can. And how do we do that? So the ancestors, these rishis, these sages, therefore they created the science of Ayurveda, that listen, we know that life is not going to be great all the time. You're going to go through stresses, you're going to go through illness, misery, deprivation, poverty, anything. But how are you going to go through it? These are the tools they've gifted us. So, with that, I would love to hear from Dr. Azam about
Yeah, and I
British
just
Yoga.
wanted to add that it just sort of reminded me that in this pandemic we are all the time thinking of immunity, our immunity, so that we don't get the disease. You see, so you have to take vitamin B, vitamin D, zinc. We have to be very careful. So similarly, the way you are explaining this, we have to be mentally and physically also strong enough to take stress. We must prepare ourselves, be aware of it. Only when we are aware of it, we'll be able to handle it. So just like we build up our physical immunity against disease, we can build up our mental, emotional capacity and resilience to first of all, make sure that it is not impacting us very badly. We don't feel overwhelmed, and also to be able to handle it. And in that, I think in the Vedas, they do talk a lot about detachment, which can play a very important role in handling situations. Yeah.
And detachment is one of the most misunderstood spiritual words, if I may say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's why we've got you to explain it to us, the complexities of it. Yeah.
So I'll just share what I have understood and how I apply it, right? So detachment doesn't mean you don't care or you become insular or you become isolated, let whatever's happening happen and I don't care. It's not that at all. It's about cultivating an attitude where you are not attached. There's a big difference. When you perform your actions to the best of your ability, using your brain, your dhi, your buddhi, your smriti, your dhriti, and then you let go of the outcome. See, we all perform actions for an outcome. That is very normal.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would we perform actions? Why are we doing this talk? Why is Dr. Azam in his field? Why is he healing people? He wants to heal people. That is his preferred outcome. But to reach there, he has to do his work the best he can, but he cannot guarantee that it's going to happen. So detachment is from the outcome of the actions. That is the key to understanding what detachment is. The other thing which causes stress is, you're used to a particular lifestyle and you think this is all that makes me happy. Having all these luxuries, having all these healthy bank balance, having all these people I can depend on. But what if any of these things gets disturbed?
Exactly.
Then it creates a lot of stress, or the perceived loss of any of these things creates a lot of stress for us. So detachment over there means understanding that these are not permanent. For no one who is on this earth, it's permanent. Everybody goes through loss. Everybody goes through some kind of turbulence in their life at one point or the other. So the detachment over there is not having attachment to these things. Doesn't mean you stop caring about it. Doesn't mean you tell your husband, hey, I know you're going in some time, so I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to care about you. Or it doesn't mean that I don't enjoy good food or that I don't enjoy a luxury ride, or a luxury picnic. Enjoy everything, but
Acceptance.
don't crave it. Where if you lose it, you get so badly impacted, where you become dysfunctional and you start crying and grieving over it. But anyway,
Attachment like this also can be considered as addiction, ma'am. Like
yeah.
sometimes addiction is different, attachment is different. So the kind of things you're telling, it's like an addiction. You're addicted to this that misses off, and you go out of track. So addiction is different and attachment is different. Yeah, you're right. You're telling when you should know when to get attached and when to get yourself detached. And you should accept the fact that you're getting detached for a reason.
And you were, Azam, you were going to talk about, I think Shivani had asked you to explain the Dinacharya. Yeah.
Dinacharya. So, ma'am, Dinacharya is basically being in a rhythm with the nature cycle. Being in a rhythm with the nature cycle, because you are also a part of nature. So you have to be in a rhythm with the nature cycle. So being in a balance between the three doshas and the surroundings is called as Dinacharya. So there are few steps.
Excuse me, Azam, I think someone's mic is on. Kindly just can you mute that, please? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Azam. Yeah.
So Dinacharya emphasizes the practice of routines as in the lifestyle incorporating everyday's living. For example, you have to get this few things into your lifestyle so that you keep practicing forever. It's not that you have to do it for a few days and then stop. That is not Dinacharya. Dinacharya is where you wake up every day, you brush your teeth, you go to your work, you comb your hair. All these aspects come under Dinacharya. So according to that, Ayurveda has described Dinacharya, and it has divided the whole day into 24 hours divided by 6 periods. So 24 hours is divided into 6 periods, and each period will last around 4 hours.
Yes.
Is my video on? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's divided into 4 hours. So here, the importance of Dinacharya is if you can get Dinacharya, or if you can get few routines in your life or in the lifestyle, there you can change a lot of things. You can get rid of stress. You can get rid of a lot of diseases, I would say. And there's so many diseases, I can't name them right now. But yeah, it'll be a very healthy lifestyle to get Dinacharya as a part of your life. It's very simple. I'll just start naming a few things.
Yeah.
So let's divide the whole day into 6 different periods. So 6 different periods. I'll just share my screen to a small pie chart, which I found.
Yeah.
So that it will be very easy for you to see. Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yes, we can see. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can see, there are 6. Yeah. The whole day is divided into different categories now here. Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So our day, they say that Dinacharya usually starts in Brahma Muhurta. So waking up early in the morning, that is called as the Brahma Muhurta. The reason why they say waking up early in the morning is because you can see here the Vata towards the left side, the blue pie chart at 6 a.m. You can see that Vata there present at 6 a.m. Yeah. So the period from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. is considered to be as the best time to wake up. If you have seen, for example, you try to wake up after 6 o'clock. It's very difficult for people to wake up after 6 o'clock. So the moment you hit the seventh hour, you start becoming lazy. It's hard to hit the alarm and wake up. So if you can wake up from 2 to 6 o'clock in this period of time, it is very easy for us to wake up, and our body is more active in this part.
Okay.
Yeah, are you understanding this?
Yes, we are understanding. I'm going more towards the 6 a.m. rather than the 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the 6 a.m. is considered to be as the end part.
Yeah.
After that starts the Kapha Kala. So this is called
When
as
you
the
become a
Vata
little
Kala.
lazy, maybe,
Lazy.
in getting
So
up.
even, yeah, you can, I have experienced this myself. So for example, I wake up at 3 o'clock and I have to do some work till 9 o'clock in the morning. So as I approach towards the 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock, I start yawning. So this is not normal. This is not just like a book written or something which is not researched about. So this is a very advanced science where it says after 6 your Kapha Kala starts. Waking up late in the day will make you lazy. The whole day will go heavy. You will have a heavy head. You will be very angry, or you feel you have not slept enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after waking up after 6 will cause all those problems. That is because the Kapha Kala starts after 6 and it ends till end at 10 o'clock. So having breakfast at the time of Vata Kala, so it's like energy of the moment makes it easier to wake up early and eliminate all the toxics. So till 6 a.m. your Vata is active. After that your Kapha starts. So Kapha starts is where you are more enlightened. You'll have to do a little bit of exercise during Kapha Kala. So they say 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. is a very good time to work out or go for a walk, make yourself active. So you have to do opposite to what the climate is telling you to do. Are you getting my point?
No, I didn't get that. Opposite to the climate meaning?
For example, see ma'am, 6 o'clock, say 10 o'clock tak aapka kapha, it's a Kapha Kala. So during this Kapha Kala, your body is very lazy.
Okay.
It does not want to move. It is very subtle. It just wants to relax. At this time is a time where you have to work out, where you have to start walking, doing some activity.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And having a light breakfast. This time is a very good identical time for having a breakfast. Okay.
And what are the next ones? Yeah.
Then comes from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is considered to be as the Pitta Kala because the sun rises, the sun starts giving it heat from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The sun will be at its maximum potential.
Yes.
Yeah. So because the sun is in its maximum potential, your body is also behaving like an Agni or a fire, where your digestion is high. So having a good lunch after 12 is considered to be as the best time because it'll be very easy for you to digest. There'll be no problem. That is where your pitta is in the highest position. Okay. And
so lunch
until
1 to 1 to 2,
there's
12
also
to
written
2.
Agni is stronger. Bigger meal is advised. Multitask.
You have a good lunch between 12 to 2.
From 12 to 2. After 2 till 6 p.m. till evening is considered to be as a very you are supposed to have good lunch between 12 to 2. And after 2 o'clock again vata kicks up. So Vata Kala starts after 12 to 2 where you'll have to relax for some time.
Okay.
Like do some creative work, use your do a lot of reading. You can do a lot of reading, take a short walk after your lunch. Anything that involves you in an activity is very advisable after lunch.
Okay.
Till 6 p.m. in the evening. Until then you have a good time to do all your work, finish your work, like do all kind of strenuous work if you want to do, or is there anything like that. And after 6 p.m. is again where Kapha Kala starts. So after the whole day, after 6 o'clock you're very tired. People want to just go relax and sleep.
I'm in
and
a
then
session.
relax and sleep, and they don't want to do anything else. At that time Kapha is in its highest position. That means your body wants to relax, but you can do a little a small yoga session. That is why they say yoga is very advisable at this period, at 6 to 10 in this period of time. So you let your body relax. You take out all the stress of the whole day and then keep your body in a very relaxed condition from 6 to 10 p.m.
Okay. So what time should be the dinner?
Dinner can be any time in between 6 to 10. Any time in between. So it can be as early as 6 or it can be as early as 9 o'clock, as late as 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and what time should one go off to sleep then?
Yes. So after 10 p.m. Till 2 p.m. is where your body is in its relaxed position. it will not cause any problem. You will not need any energy. So after 10, so for example, you finish your dinner by 8 o'clock, you can give an hour's gap. 1 hour gap is required after your dinner, and then you can go to sleep anytime after that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thanks. That's
Marvel.
very good because for
God sent.
stress, to deal with stress, a routine is very much important. So, Shivani, I'll come back to you because I'll ask, I like others to ask questions also. So, I would come back to you to help us out in the present scenario. Like I had explained in the beginning that we wanted to take up this topic because all of us are feeling a little depressed and stressed out, and also we are feeling like that, and our family members are feeling like that, and especially as young children are feeling like that, be it teenagers or the younger ones. So first of all, many of us who have joined this session right now, we would like to tackle it so that we don't we don't feel stressed out, because we will be communicating it to our family members and to our children also.
Yeah,
And
it's
the
called
whole
passing the
situation,
monkey. Called
then
passing the monkey.
of course. And so as a result, in the whole atmosphere in the house will be very stressful. So
Yeah.
what I have found out, whatever, layperson, in my own life, is that talking to people is very important, and reaching out when you are feeling stressed. One should not hesitate from ringing up friends, talking with them. And just like you were telling some of the stories recently, I was really upset because I saw a very close friend of mine who's a very gutsy journalist, and from her message I could make out that she was feeling very depressed because she was suffering from this fever for 15 days, and she said, I just can't, I want to give up. And I was a little perturbed by that, and I just I didn't want to disturb her, so I sent a long voice message and spoke to her, and asked her to call me whenever she's feeling a little low and all that. And today I was really happy when I asked her again. She said, I'm feeling better. So, it's only at certain points that we feel overwhelmed. And
Yeah.
it's good if we support each other by talking. And maybe the next day the other person can't take it. And, so especially in our community, we are so lucky, all of us reach out to help each other, and we don't hesitate in asking also. So the
Yeah.
communication is very much important. But what are the other things? How can we deal with it right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
How we respond, how we react, how we deal with it.
So definitely, Ghazala, one of the things, so Ayurveda says it a few different ways and very beautifully. It says, there is something called Sattva Vajay. Sattva Vajay means you actively, consciously cultivate Sattva in your life. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but a question came up about Dinacharya, on the chat. So yes, the chart that was brought up, it shows the ideal Dinacharya.
Marvel.
Now,
Yeah.
any change in our life, for it to be sustainable, let's not have so many things that we decide to do, that we, with all our good intentions, we say we are going to do all this, and then we fall short of our expectations, and then we feel like, oh, we are so bad, we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that. So don't put that stress on yourself. Out of all the things that we talk about today, pick one or two that you want to experiment with. Be curious about these things that you're trying. Like, approach it with the mentality of a child, who wants to experiment with these suggestions and then see the effect on your body. So Dr. Azam talked about eating. Okay, let's start with the morning itself. So if you wake up naturally at that time, between 2 and 6, that's perfect. But what if you don't? What if your life so far has been that you don't wake up at that time?
Yeah, you're used to that. Yeah.
Yeah, so what has happened is it's taken some years, some choice of unconscious or conscious habits. That's why you're waking up late, right? So where are you going to make the change? You go backward. You make a change in your sleeping time. And how will you sleep comfortably? Only if you've eaten, as Dr. Azam said, at least an hour to hour and a half before your intended sleeping time, right? So you start with that, saying, today I'm going to have a dinner that is around, that's a good time. And then an hour and a half of that, I want to try and get into a situation where I feel sleepy. Most of us, what happens is we are so busy during the day, especially with no help right now, that we, after dinners, when we sit down on our devices, we sit down with our phone on social media because we want to catch up with everybody. We want to send messages, see what's come up on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. But what is that doing to your mind? It's arousing the capability, it's making your mind active. So
Active.
Active.
the rajas aspect of your mind's gunas is getting activated.
The
So
vata
how
is
are you going to
increasing.
feel like sleeping? You're not going to feel sleepy at 10, 10:30. And suppose you read a message that really bothers you, or something comes up and you really have to act on it. Now you've lost your peace of mind to be able to go to sleep, right? So I'm not saying that this advice is applicable to everyone. The people who are really on the front lines, who are committed to supporting people, they make these compromises, and then their family should support them or their friends should support them. But in general, if you don't have to be on your device after 9, really,
It's better.
if you're not frontline support, if you're not actively helping someone, you start by restraining yourself there by saying 9:30 is my last device interaction and I'm stopping it right there and there. Now you go for a walk, or you listen to music, or you read a book that you've always wanted to read. So your body gets the signal that it's time to wind down. So by making that small change over there, and naturally see what time you wake up the next morning. If you've gotten enough sleep, you will naturally wake up at a reasonable amount of time.
Yes.
It may not be at 6 dot, it may be 6:37, but slowly, 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 you will find that your body gets into a rhythm. So all these changes take time. You've got to be patient with yourself, but you shouldn't give up. If you sleep at around 10, 10:30, you'll find that your body naturally wants to eliminate in the morning by about between 6 and 7. You naturally want to go to the bathroom. So that's a great start. Go ahead, do that, then start with the rest of your day. Now, the other thing is that, between 10 and 2, you should eat. What happens is people have so much work that they try to look at their phones, their messages, they try to respond to their emails, they watch the news while they are eating. So now you are not eating with your senses. You have to be able to touch your food, smell your food, taste your food,
Enjoy.
appreciate the food. Engaging your senses allows you to absorb the food. And it also cuts down on the quantity of food that you actually end up eating. Because
And
if you're
people
watching,
have a
You're
habit of
chewing
eating in
more.
hurry.
You
yeah,
chew
People have a habit of
properly,
hurrying up
you
when they eat.
taste all the food that you are eating and not eat in a hurry. That is true.
you know
Yes.
how
So then you won't gulp down so much of food, you'll eat lesser.
Yeah.
yeah, and
Just
feeling
the sake of
grateful in
eating.
this time. Yeah.
Just the sake of eating, they just eat everything at once. They eat within 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and then just like, yeah, I'm done with my lunch. And then it starts with newer problems.
Yeah, because it
Giving
takes
some,
much longer to
yeah, to
digest.
digest.
Yeah.
Digestion starts in the mouth.
Mouth
With the saliva,
with the
Exactly.
saliva.
starch and the sugar.
Exactly. So when you're not even smelling, tasting, seeing your food, you're just gulping down because अच्छा एक चबा के नीचे करना है, दूसरा already हाथ में है.
See, until you don't smell, your body will not secrete those digestive enzymes. It's
Yeah.
all in the tongue and the nose from where your digestive enzymes are activated. Okay, there is this food coming in the mouth. Start producing whatever the bile juice is in the stomach. It's like a sense which starts. So if you don't let your senses go first, then definitely there's be a lot of problem in the digestion.
Yeah. And then your
Which is
stomach
very
has to do all
important.
the work. Your
Yeah.
stomach
Yes.
has to,
Take all the burden.
suddenly be burdened with all this food that you've eaten in a big hurry. So
Yeah.
one intervention can be done right there. Just try this. When you sit down for a meal, put your phone on silent, sit in a pleasant environment, and you don't have to talk a lot while eating. You can just, sit down for a meal either with your family or by yourself, and just look at that plate in front of you. Before you even take one bite, just look at it. Just see if you can smell something. Appreciate how it's looking, or make changes if you want to. If you don't like the way it looks, make changes.
Yeah. It should
the
be
second thing-
appetizing. It should look
Appetizing. It
Yeah.
should look appetizing.
And in these times, I understand it's hard. Without help, you're like just struggling to put 3 meals in front of your family. But don't do it for all 3 meals. Don't overwhelm yourself. Do it for 1 meal.
Have one good, enjoyable meal. Then
Yeah.
rest you can just eat.
Yeah. And then when you put that food in your mouth, chew it. Our elders used to say, chew it 32 times.
32 times.
I don't think any of us have that much time. So, but at least understand that you have to masticate it, that you have to feel it, that you have to chew it, and then only pick up the next bite. Don't have that next bite in your hand, in your spoon.
Ready.
So that's one small intervention. And, just make a note of these interventions and say, okay, this week I'm going to try only this one. I'm going to see how it goes for me.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is, after eating, what do people do? I don't know what people do, but I am consciously cultivating this habit of taking 100 steps.
100%.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it doesn't have to be a brisk walk or anything. Just in your house, in your garden, if you have one, or if you can step outside, take 100 steps. You will either feel, either you're passing wind or you will burp, and that indicates that your digestion is underway.
Okay.
So these small interventions can go a big deal in building up your resilience towards stress, because the way you feel in your body is the biggest factor that contributes to your resilience. So,
And water as well, ma'am, because we're talking
Yeah.
about food.
Yeah.
Water also is very important. So people just drink 2-3 glasses of water before eating food,
yeah,
which definitely subsides their hunger or their appetite. Then they eat, then they start being malnourished, or they don't get proper nourishment with the food, or they're not able to eat enough. Also having food like water in a very correct quantity during, before and after food is important.
yeah, just sips, just sips to
Just
moisten
sips,
your
must
mouth.
moisten the mouth.
Yeah. And then sometimes, okay, so that's your lunchtime.
Yeah.
Now you go towards that evening time, the
Evening
water
time.
Now, at that time, if you schedule a meeting that is going to be a little stressful for you,
Stressful.
then it impacts your digestion. So if possible, if you have things under control, or if you are able to suggest times to people, try to have these kind of high energy stressful meetings in the morning, after your breakfast, around 10
Yeah.
to 10 to
12.
before your lunch. Try to do it at that time, because your energy is present. Around that time, you start feeling a little spacey, it could happen.
Innovative.
Huh?
You will start feeling more innovative in the mornings.
Yeah.
Your mind is more brighter.
Yeah.
Because it's fresh.
And we used to do that when we were in school, if you remember, for exams and all. We used to get up in the morning.
Early in the morning and study.
To, start studying. That was the best way to do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Then it comes to that dinner time, so you've had your dinner, and it's very natural to want something sweet with every meal. So if you can plan, okay, this is what I'm going to have, something sweet with my meal, because 6 tastes are important as far as possible. But try not to have cold desserts, heavy desserts after dinner.
Yes.
Try to avoid having lots of fruits after dinner, because what that does is it overwhelms your body with kapha.
Kapha.
And your
And
body
curds.
Sorry?
Curds
Yeah.
in the night. Curds
Yeah,
is one big bunch of kapha which will put you into a very obese state. I mean, you will become very kapha prakriti after you start taking curds in the night.
Yeah. Yeah, doctor, that is an amazing point, because many of us, due to our cultural conditioning, are used to having
Curds.
Especially in the south. Especially in the
South.
south, you end the meal with curd and rice.
Curd and rice, exactly. So ending meal in curd and rice is not bad.
Yeah.
Only having curd rice in the night after the meal is bad.
And
having
also,
it in the lunch, it's good.
Yeah, there's a concept called Satmiyata in Ayurveda, which says that
exactly, your body gets used to it.
Yeah, your body, if you have been doing this for generations, then you don't face any ill effects.
Exactly.
And if it's working for you, it's fine. But if you are noticing that, I have this allergic rhinitis feeling in the night, if I'm snoring in the night, if I wake up with sniffles in the morning, then this is a small change that you can make.
So it means kapha is predominant in your body
Yeah.
in the night.
And
Yeah.
Shivani, I would like to, because I think we've talked for an hour, and I like others to ask questions also. So,
Yeah.
and the other things, of course, we'll deal with them in later sessions in more detail. But as I was saying, in today's time, because of the pressures on us due to the COVID thing, the other things that we can do is spend time with our family, play board games, work in the garden, be with nature, which is healing as such, and talk to friends,
The,
do our yoga. These are the things, briefly I was just listing
there's
them
one
out
thing
that
I
one
want to
can
add
do.
up into this list, ma'am. It's called as Pada Abhyanga. It's called as the foot massage. Foot
Okay.
massage plays a very important role in, I mean, it is the best stress buster, I can say. You can take some oil or help each other for a foot massage. With a good pressure, you just need to gently massage your foot from your soles to your fingers, and you will see the result. You will feel very, very refreshed
The
after a foot massage.
sole and going up to the toes. Oh, that's a
Yes,
good
yes,
activity, Shivani, I must
yes,
say. A family activity,
Yeah.
massaging
yes,
each other's feet will be nice,
yes.
you know, and
Yes,
a
you
lot
will
of
literally
bondage.
sleep. You will literally sleep if you are a lot in a lot of stress. It's a very good stress buster.
Yeah.
Foot massage.
And also, I think the feeling of, of course, meditation and all can be different subheadings that, we can do later on. But also, especially in today's time, the feeling of gratitude. If we can
Gratitude.
list the things that we can be thankful for, maybe,
Giving
that
a
would
hair
help
massage.
us. But that would help us get over the present stress a little bit. What do you say,
Yes,
Shivani?
yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
head massage also.
Yeah, regular head massage. So why? Why are we saying head massages? Look at the science. It says that in your body, you have 5 types of vata, 5 types of pitta, five
Pitta,
types of kapha.
kapha.
So each of these 5 types really goes towards working in the body. So the prana vayu, the sadhaka pitta, and the avalambaka kapha.
Avalambaka kapha.
These are the 3 that are really stress protective for
Protective.
our body. So what does it mean? Prana vayu is our breathing capacity.
Breathing.
When we take the breath in, we exhale, we inhale. So taking mindful pauses during the day to notice, are you breathing? How are you breathing?
Yeah.
And maybe take a few moments to breathe. Just notice, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. That is one thing. Now, Sadhaka Pitta. Sadhaka Pitta is in the region of the heart. And Ayurveda doesn't just look at the physical heart, it looks at the whole heart mind complex. So, Sadhaka Pitta is the one that gives you clarity, gives you a resilience, tolerance, the ability to bear stress. And how is that cultivated? Through a few things, but one of them is self restraint. So, self restraint is when you don't just, pass on the monkey, so to speak. You utilize or you cultivate your ability to see the stress. First, understand what is it that is stressing me. And if I don't know how to respond to it, at least let me learn to respond to it. So let me give you an example. Today's times, we have so much work at home, right? No help.
Yeah.
So whenever you meet your partner, whenever you see your children, don't look at them as to-do lists. अरे ये भी कर लो, अरे वो भी कर लो, अच्छा ये नहीं किया, अरे वो करना था. Look at them as people and engage with them, build a relationship with them. All this work will come of, you can have a conversation ki acha, these are the work that has to be done, who's going to take it up, let's take turns, whatever. But it's not just a to-do list. These are people that you're dealing with. Just like how you want to be treated, you should treat others. So
Yes.
do you want to be approached with a to-do list in the morning and then somebody watching over you all day? So this is sadhaka pitta, where you cognize, where you understand, where you respond and not react. And this avalambaka kapha, and the one avalambaka kapha is in your chest, but tarpaka kapha is in your
The head.
brain,
In the brain.
cerebrospinal fluid. And that's where the topic of massage came in. Because this is the one, the tarpaka kapha needs to be nourished
Nourished.
in order for your brain to stay cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, right now we should all be doing some sort of stretch exercises or walks with all the precautions, of course, with the mask and all that, or do yoga or meditation. Yeah.
And especially for this time, Ghazala, I want to say that what stress does is it triggers the negativity bias in our brain. Our brain has a bias of focusing in on what is the negative things in our life. But it's a survival mechanism because we have to see the threat and we have to deal with the threat. But as a practice in Ayurveda for Sattva Vajay, we widen our vision. So we acknowledge, we accept that there is a threat, we understand the stress, but that is not all that there is in your life. There are many other things in your life which can carry you through the stress, which can support you and which you can support. So
Yeah.
broadening your cognitive ability is very important in dealing with stress.
Great. Thank you, Shivani. I think now I'd like to ask all the people who've joined in this wonderful session as to, what questions they have from both of you. So, please go ahead, unmute your mic and ask the question to Shivani and to Dr. Azam. Don't be stressed about it. You can go ahead and ask. Feel easy. Ghar ki baat. Haan,
This
tell.
is Melina.
Hi, Melina.
Thank you very much for having this session. I was unable to attend the last one, so I'm really glad that I've attended this one. You guys are amazing. Um, and this is a really wonderful topic, stress. Um, I took a really long time in my life to realize that a really great way to respond to stress was to focus on my breathing in the situation. Um, and I just wanted to know more about that and whether that is one of the techniques that Ayurveda recommends to deal with stress when you're actually in the stressful situation. Say, for example, a stressful situation at work or, wherever it might be. I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah. So you put your finger on the spot, Melina, because as I mentioned, prana vayu. So Ayurveda understands that body and mind are deeply connected. They are not separate from each other. If I were to ask you where your mind is, it's not in your brain. It's actually all over your body.
Body.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
when mind and breath are intimately connected, you can make out the state of a person by the way they breathe.
Breathe.
So conversely, by making it a corollary, you can adjust your state of mind by the way you breathe. If the breath gets affected by the mind can get affected by the breath. And there is a science to it because there's something called a yogic breath in yoga. And basically what you do is you expand your lung capacity to the fullest. Either you lie down in a prone position or you're sitting up. And the diaphragm should be allowed to expand to its fullest. And that happens when you inflate your stomach. And then you want to let out all the stale or the residual air as far as possible.
By
And
squeezing
that
the
happens
stomach.
By
Squeezing the stomach muscles
by
back
squeezing the
inside.
stomach. And so what that happens is, and it shouldn't be done very fast because you want to have that interchange between carbon dioxide and oxygen happen. You have to give your lungs, the alveoli, enough time to do that exchange, efficiently. So the science of yogic breathing connected with Ayurveda's understanding of body and mind and breath clearly point to the fact that you have experienced that when you calm down your breathing in a stressful situation, it allows your prefrontal cortex to engage. Usually, we are reacting from the limbic system. The limbic system is the one that the reptilian brain, which responds to stress and reacts right away. If you're walking on a road and if a truck comes, you don't want to think that you have to move out of the way. You just have to move.
You just move.
Right? So the limbic system is very useful in certain situations like that. But when it is a chronic situation where you have to be in meetings with people who stress you out, who talk nonsense, who just don't see things clearly.
Positive, yeah.
Then your prefrontal cortex has to engage, which gives you decision-making abilities. So the breath is the quickest way to do that. This yogic mindful breathing is one. Brahmari, when you're by yourself.
Brahmari. Yes.
When you want to let go of all that, when you want to give your brain a massage, actually, let me put it correctly. You can massage any part of your body, but how do you massage your brain from inside?
So
by
inside the
Brahmari.
Brahmari is the one in which
Is
you
this,
plug
yeah,
the
you keep like
ears
this ears and then
do the
make a
humming
hum.
sound.
Yes.
Exactly, the hum.
So
Yeah,
the
but
vibrations are in the brain and it's activating.
I just want to say one thing about any breathing that you want to do. It should not be beyond your capacity.
Capacity.
If you find that you're straining yourself and even doing these good things, please cut back on it. If you can only count up to 4 when you're breathing in and only up to 4 when you're breathing out, that's a great start. Don't try to reach 8 and 16 and 32 and all those ratios that are talked about. That's just going to create additional pressure on your nervous system. So,
In turn, you will become more stressed.
yeah. Kapalbhati is another great way to allow your prefrontal cortex to rejuvenate.
Activate, yes.
Because in
Rejuvenate.
Kapalbhati, you are, I won't go over the actual breathing now, but what you're doing is you're letting go of conditioned thinking and you're allowing a receptivity of new ideas.
Okay.
I think basically all these breathing exercises, you are breathing openly to your full capacity and there's more oxygen going to your brain, which helps you relax and think and ease
I
the
think
stress.
more than more oxygen, you're improving your absorption capacity.
Absorption capacity is higher.
Because you're giving
So your
more
lungs,
time. Yeah.
exactly. So I have seen people, they don't take complete breaths. They just take short breaths, and which in turn leads them to overthink, or they don't have the capacity to think a lot. They tell I feel a little dull today. I don't feel a lot. I don't feel very active. It's because they don't breathe enough. So if there is no connection between breath and mind, then this is never possible. It's not at all possible. So the more you expand your lungs, the more you will have the capacity to think, and the more oxygen you can supply to your brain. It's all interconnected like a cycle.
Yeah, Azam, you were mentioning about some of your friends who are working in the wards, helping
Yes, ma'am.
COVID patients, and they themselves are also stressed and the patients are stressed. So what are the kind of techniques that they are utilizing to ease the stress?
So here we have a small setup which we started by our own classmates. So we put up a small screen in the COVID ward. We just put any comedy serial or comedy show, so that people have divert themselves from being ill to at least enjoying those few comedy lines or then laughing out a lot. So here, laughing is the main criteria, the main thing which we are concentrating on. So they say laughing is the best exercise for your lungs. And during the COVID times and for the COVID patients, that is what is more important. So we make them laugh as much as they can. They try to laugh a lot. They try to laugh. It becomes very painful for them, but yet they enjoy laughing. So there was a small document done recently with our research team, R&D team. They said people who started laughing a lot had three times more chances of recovery than the people who were just, being in a positive state and then meeting the family and then relaxing and not breathing enough. They did not require oxygen supplies. Only thing they did was they tried to expand their lungs. They try to expand the lung capacity. So indulging ourselves into a small comedy serial or having a small laughter session is very, very important, and it improves your lung capacity to the next level. It's equal to swimming. Laughing out loud is equal to swimming.
Oh wow.
So they say, yeah,
you should swim in laughter. Yeah,
exactly. So when you laugh a lot, your stomach starts hurting. It's because you have used all the corners of the lungs.
Oh yeah, I understand that.
So it's equal to going for a jog. Laughing out for around 10 minutes is equal to going for a sprint for around 1 hour or 2 hours.
And also, of course, it makes you happy. So
happy.
Endorphins are released.
Yes, endorphins are released. You're more positive, and you're less caring about negative stuff when you're laughing out.
So we should do
There's
that
a lot
at
of
home
emotional
also.
changes. Yes.
We try to distract ourselves.
Rather than watching news or any other thing which gives you negativity, you can just watch some comedy serial or comedy show, whichever you like, or a movie which you wanted to see again. It changes the whole atmosphere. It changes the whole atmosphere in the house. Everyone's laughing. Everyone's happy.
Vibrations
no one's
change.
Exactly. vibration change.
Thank you, Azam. Anyone else with a question, please? Go ahead. Anyone else who would like to ask something?
Hi, I didn't want to ask anything, but after hearing about all this laughter, today's World Laughter Day.
Oh, really?
Maybe a good laugh will help everybody.
Yes, we never.
So that is very, that's such a coincidence. So all of us can have a laughter session at home after this session. I think that would be good. Anyone else has a query you would like to clarify?
I have another question, if I may. If
Yeah,
there
sure.
are
Go
no
ahead,
other
Melina.
Yes,
Yeah,
go
sure.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. So what is your opinion on taking a slow walk after every meal? Is that something that is good for your body? I know you mentioned taking a walk after
Lunch.
lunch, but is that something that you all recommend after every meal?
After dinner also they say stroll, not a brisk walk, isn't it, Shivani?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anytime you can do a little walk after a meal that's, you feel sad, like you get that feeling in your stomach where you feel like, okay, I've eaten
A little
decent
more.
amount. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do that, or you sit in Vajrasan. For some reason, if you're not able to go out for a walk, let's say if it's raining, you can still walk in your house. But if you want to do Vajrasan, that's perfect. And you can definitely walk after every meal. That would just allow you that time and space to get your digestion started.
That's such a good
And you
idea. I
and
many
taking
times
a walk.
feel that I should train myself that after dinner we watch TV, to sit in Vajrasan and watch the TV. You're
Absolutely.
doing two things at the same time. Sorry. Yes, Azim?
And I forgot what I was about.
I wanted to share one little hack. It's not a hack, it's a home remedy for constipation. And the reason I want to offer this is because it's something that we do face in our life, and it can actually lead to stress. Because let's say you have to go to work or you have to catch a flight, and if you've not been able to eliminate, it creates that background stress in your mind. Oh, what if I have to go at an inconvenient
Yes.
time, or what if. So here's what
Constipation
you
is a
can.
big factor for stress nowadays.
Yeah.
Big factor
And
for stress.
it's in fact, if you go back, if you trace the roots, you will find that it is caused by dryness in the body, which is
Yes.
caused by excess of vata in the body,
Vata.
which is caused by stress.
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 So
So it's a cycle. It's a complete cycle.
So what you can do is this: you can take, you have prunes, right? Everyone knows about prunes.
Yeah.
You take 4 or 5 prunes, and you take 2 cups of water, and you cook it until you get about half a cup. Okay. Now, children also will benefit from this because this is a very gentle remedy, but it works. So,
and these are the tinned prunes which we get, is it?
No, not the tin prunes, just
The dry prunes.
The dry prunes.
Yeah, exactly.
So you drink that water, or you give your children that water by adding just a pinch of salt and sugar,
Yes.
just to make it a little appetizing. And you can eat those cooked prunes also. And this, I don't mean to sound gross, but even in psychology, that being able to have a good elimination and being able to eat well are some of the simplest pleasures in life. So
exactly.
They can go a long way in building your resilience towards stress and disease.
There's also a small hack, ma'am, where you use fig, the dry fig,
Yes,
soaked in water overnight, and then having that fig in the morning.
Yeah.
Or you can soak the fig in the morning and have it in the night. So
Yeah.
fig is a very good, reduces the constipation as well.
I
Fig is
suppose a
very
lot
good.
of fiber and seeds and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fibers, yes, people, there's a misconception where people eat a lot of fiber and don't drink water. So the fiber gets stuck again.
Yeah.
So the balance of that should be there. So having these small hacks like anjeer, the dry fig, and as ma'am said, the
Prunes
prune.
will be chwara, is it?
I actually don't know what they're called, but I just know them as prunes.
Yeah,
Another
you
way,
get them as prunes itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're like purple in color. They're little tangy in taste.
Another
So
thing you can do is, if you're up to it,
prunes are dry plums, right?
Plums.
I actually don't know. I just go what says
Yeah.
prunes.
Yeah, dried
Prunes.
plums. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to
Okay.
shop for the prunes. Yeah, because I've always had them in packets,
Yeah. Same
Yes.
like,
like
yeah.
or tinned or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know,
Sorry, Shivani, you were saying something and I
yeah.
interrupted
No,
you.
not
Sorry.
at all. I want to say that those who can do this can take a glass of hot milk, okay, and put 1 spoon of castor oil in it, and make it up
Yes.
and down till it becomes frothy and foamy, and then drink it. That's
But
Oh,
also a
this
great
is
way. Yeah,
that's a
this,
lubricant in a way. Oh, very
it,
good.
I mean,
Shivani,
castor oil is considered to be as the best laxative. I mean, the best
yeah.
laxative which does not cause any trouble to your stomach.
yeah.
So, but you
But
know,
it
both
should be
of you
taken in milk.
are telling such good home remedies, and as we know that for a good health and a pleasant demeanor and everything, a good digestive system or good elimination is so essential.
Essential.
Otherwise there's toxicity in your body. So
Yes.
these things are very useful, I must say. I'm sure people are taking notes down. I am memorizing all the little things.
But you will get immediate
Uh,
results in the castor oil and milk.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Can I say something? I just
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
mean this.
Renu, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking to my daughter, and she was talking about how there's the brain and the nervous system. The and she was mentioning that the digestive system is considered to be the secondary brain system.
Yeah.
So it is as sensitive and expressive of your state of mind.
Yes.
Absolutely, Renu.
Absolutely. That
Right
So
explains
on.
whenever I used to have exams, I used to have upset stomach in the morning.
stomach.
Exactly. So the two are connected.
Yeah.
And one remedy which I typically has been passed down, and the girls use it everywhere. I mean, they take that thing with them. Is if you have a queasy or blue stomach, then you take a spoon full of fenugreek seeds with a tablespoon of curd, and just swallow it. And
Oh,
it so
Methi
as
seeds.
yeah,
Yes.
methi seeds. So I mean, as soon as you start feeling that your stomach
Yes.
is kind of shaky, you can do that, and it really helps. It helps to settle down the stomach. Of course, if it is really bad, then that's a different story. But a
yeah.
small upset of stomach easily settles it down.
It even
Thank you.
subsides
So,
nausea.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Renu. And
Subsides
Renu, you
nausea.
grind the methi seeds or you have them whole with the
Raw.
curd?
Whole. You have
Whole.
them
Whole.
whole.
Whole
Just
methi
a
seeds.
teaspoon of methi seeds, a tablespoon of curd, and just swallow it.
So you don't even chew the methi
No,
seeds, you
you
just
don't need to
swallow it.
tell me.
I suppose
Okay.
it will just
Wow.
swell up inside the stomach and help. Um,
then, for those of us who end up reaching for very sweet things just because we are feeling stressed, and sugar gives you that calming effect very temporarily, but then it shows up, as
On the weight. Exactly.
excess weight or other complications. You can not grind, you can pound some mishri, the kalakandam as it is called in South India, or rock candy with some roasted sauf, and just keep it in a bottle by your side. So before you decide to go, like if you see, having desserts is not wrong or anything. It's just that if you have a very heavy dessert after a very heavy meal, then it's going to compromise your digestion. So before you go for the dessert, have that mix of sauf and mishri first. Allow yourself to feel satisfied by that. Then go for your dessert, and you may notice that you take smaller portions of the dessert.
Honey also can be used instead of sugar. I mean, honey does not give that the direct release of glucose, but yes, it has something called as fructose, which is not harmful as the glucose. Honey.
Yeah. So you feel satiated with the sweetness.
Yes, you need to cheat your body with the sugar, the fructose, not with the glucose.
Thank you so much. Anyone else who wants to ask something? Yeah.
Okay, I have another question if people don't have a question.
Yeah, Melina,
Yes,
go
yes,
ahead.
please.
Okay. Okay, so now this is on the concept of intermittent fasting, right? Where you don't eat for
11
16
hours.
hours, right?
Yes.
And the concept is that it allows your body to heal and detox
Cleanse.
in that cleanse, basically in that time period, right? So are there other things that you can do to help your body cleanse or detox on a regular basis?
Detox. That's what Shiva.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, there are.
So
Go ahead.
first detox I can tell you is clearing your stomach. First, the basic detox. If you still feel that you want to go for the next level of detox, is where you can start adding on to early morning drinks, where you can use celery and cucumbers as an early morning first juice, so that your liver and blood is getting purified first, because the first drink in the morning should be water or this kind of juice, or a detox drink, which can be made up of celery and cucumbers. I have experienced good detox in these two things, celeries and cucumbers juice.
Azam, I would
Yes.
like to intervene right now. Actually, Azam
Yeah.
is doing a lot of detox nowadays because he's keeping all his rosas.
Yes.
The Ramzan is on, and I just noticed that it's time for iftar. He has been
Oh,
fasting the whole
yeah.
day. You might have forgotten, but I realized
ma'am.
that you need to
Thank
have your iftar. So we better wind up now. But it's been so wonderful, and that's what I said in my little message also. That of course it will be very useful for all of us, and it also gives us an opportunity to connect with each other, even if it's virtually, especially at this time when all of us are just, cooped up in our own homes and we are not stepping out. So thank you so
Can I
much for
share?
joining. Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Renu.
Sorry, one just remedy, which is again
Yeah.
a good thing. So morning, many times people feel acidic or uh, gassy or discomfort. So traditionally, they, if you may remember, there used to be like water in which you put tulsi leaves and whatever you say your prayers, everything, and then have it. So you kind of break the tulsi leaves and put it. Even that's very good for the acidic feel and gassy feeling in the morning. So you can do that with a glass of
The,
water.
if you have noticed, is the Kerala side of the people have this habit of drinking Zira water.
Zira water. Yeah.
Zira water is considered to be as the best pittahara, where your acidic balance is maintained in such a level that you will not have any acidity or any digestive problems. So having a regular, at the moment you feel an uncontrolled headache, or you're addicted to coffee and you're trying to leave coffee and you have this headache, that is where you can incorporate Zira water.
So
Zira water
basically,
is considered to be as
boil some zira
Zira,
in water
Zira
and
chai.
cool
Yeah,
it. Huh.
exactly. Cool it and drink for the whole day. If you can continue this for a week, then your urinary tract is all clear. You're detoxing your urinary tract.
Oh wow, such useful information. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Yeah.
banana stem salad,
Salad,
that
yes.
white gourd, the white ash gourd, all these are
Ashgod,
amazing detoxifiers.
detoxes.
Okay.
Amla,
Amla.
Okay. I think
aloe
we
vera.
need to have a session on detox also. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I would request all of you to kindly on the group of Expert Online Windmills do give your suggestions, what topics you would like to discuss. And it's been so wonderful really to talk and share and learn from both Shivani and